Recording in progress. Okay. It's going to be a great time.
Oh boy.
Okay. Do I sound interesting and cool?
To go. Damn, I look so good.
All right, let's just wing it. You ready?
Cool.
4 hours later.
Dear Tech.
That
made me tired. Oh, laughing hurts. Cut.
Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Dear Tech podcast. This is my co-host, Francesca Grader.
And this is my co-host, Shubho Ghosh. Welcome, everyone. Today we are asking Dear Tech, who, what, and why? Who are we? Who are your co-hosts? What will this podcast be about? And why we created it? Shubho, please answer all three.
All three. No, okay. I'll answer who I am, and then you answer who you are.
Okay.
So I'm Shubho Ghosh. I'm currently a recruiting manager. I've been in the industry for, I think, 7 or 8 years now, not too long. And yeah, I started off at an agency, kind of fell into it by accident. I was trying to get into IT and it wasn't working out for me. And my friend was like, why not recruit? And so I started there. And after a while, I basically went through a couple companies, got laid off during COVID, didn't work for a year because was finding myself, tried to start a startup, got a dog, and then jumped back in the industry. And that is my 3-second intro.
My who? What tech field were you diving into? And then what was your startup?
I was trying to become a business analyst. Yeah, I was trying to become a business analyst. Not that I didn't do well, I just didn't like the environment I was initially put into. And then I was like, I don't think this is for me. Which I realize now, if I had been in a different environment, I probably would have liked it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then my startup, we were trying to kind of, if you think of, this is gonna be a little long-winded, but if you think of like if LinkedIn was 100% accurate and backed up by like background checks. So like what's on LinkedIn is Bible for someone's background. So I wouldn't need to.
The purpose of that would be.
So it's like you always like, well, it was this is going to be long. So one was that it was a way for HR to keep a pulse on their employees. So the employees would give like evaluations on how they felt in their roles directly to HR. The other thing was HR would in real time tell you if what was on their resume was real. And the purpose of that is making sure like when you're hiring someone, you know that their experience is legit. Because from where I came from in the agency
world, pre-background check.
Yeah. So it's like everything's 100% on there. It was a whole thing. We did not get far. It was because it was a whole thing. But yeah, that's what that was.
Tell us something like something personal. Humanize yourself for the people. You said you got a dog.
I got a dog. Yeah, I have a dog. His name's Kobe. He's turning 4 this year in a couple months. Yeah, and I've had him for 3 years now. So
exciting. Yeah. And you rescued him?
And I rescued him. Yes, I did. He was abandoned, and I saw him within a week after he was abandoned, and I took him home.
Poor guy.
Yeah, no, but he's a good boy. Y'all will see him. I'll bring him on the show at some point. But Fran, we'll come back to me at some point. Maybe not. You tell us about you. Who is Fran Grader?
Who is Fran Grader? So my full name is Francesca Grader. I have like 5 nicknames, but most everyone calls me Fran. I also am a recruiting manager across product and design functions at my current company. I've been here about 1.5 years. Prior, I was at another media company there for about 2 years. And that company was when I shifted from an IC into a management position. And then prior to that, I was at agency for about 4 years, both in a recruiting and a sales role while there. My very first job after college. I was a sales and marketing coordinator at an automotive company. So that was very much so just trying to get a job right out of college, start paying off student loans and survive, with no idea what I wanted to do. I was referred into the agency that I was in by a bunch of friends and peers who are already at the company. I think it's really common for tech agencies to recruit right out of college. So it was very much so like populated with that environment. And so I've been in the tech recruiting space for almost 8 years now. So kind of similar time span as you. Been mainly recruiting tech and product and design that whole time. I am based in LA. I am from Oregon originally, but I've lived in SoCal area for, Lord, including college. It's been, I can't do math. Including college,
14 years.
Yeah, like 13 years now, which makes me feel really freaking old. But yeah, love LA. That was mainly my spiel. I love eating and exploring in LA. I've literally lived here for, not including college, I lived in the LA area for about 9 years now, and there's still so many parts of LA I haven't explored, and so much good food. So that's my fun fact.
Solid. Oh yeah, I guess I should say that I'm in New York right now.
Yeah,
I've moved around a bit.
High
but
coastal duo.
Yes. Cool. I guess we'll be telling people more about ourselves as life goes on. All right. So Fran, what are we doing here? What is this podcast all about?
So the goal of our podcast, Dear Tech, is to speak to all players, all individuals who are part of the tech industry, whether you are a business leader or a hiring manager or an intern or a recruiter or someone who's applying for a new job. We want to speak to all of you and provide insight and perspective into all parties involved in our industry. The goal really is to provide access, lift the veil, speak to a larger audience, share insights. And not only will you and I be sharing our expertise, our combined expertise of over 15 years in the field, we're also going to be bringing in guests and experts to speak to their expertise, again, to share their thoughts and experience and knowledge with you all, to lift that veil, provide more access, and have an open dialogue across our industry. What did I miss?
Nothing. No, yeah, I absolutely agree. It's basically, an open letter to tech, and just what I think is the most interesting part of what we're doing of this, let's say, case study, is that, as time progresses, there's so much changing in tech. We're going to be able to in real time see the change. And one of the things that I think is interesting is, like, if we were to have made this podcast, let's say 9 months ago, within 3 months of that episode coming out, because initially we'd be talking about how fast the market is and how everyone's getting hired and the salaries are really high. 3 months, 6 months, we are not in that world anymore. And we would have seen that basically in real time. So I'm really excited to see and have an open dialogue of the change. And I want to see, this is going to sound weird, but I want to see how we handle, like, quote unquote breaking news in tech, because, we have a cadence that we're recording in.
I work on my reporting skills.
I'm just saying,
because here from LA.
Because there are things happening right now that we might have to talk about, like, in real time, regardless of what our cadence is. Because right now, with whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's crypto or was crypto, and see the resurgence of crypto because now Bitcoin's on the way up, whatever it may be, there's a lot of stuff happening, right? And even the stuff that's happening with, as we're recording today, what's happening with the banks, there's a tech aspect to it, right? Like, so there's a lot to talk about, and I'm just really excited about the changes and us being here, and also to open the dialogue to everyone listening, because I really think that in the past, in situations where people have tried to, or organizations have tried to lift the veil, it's been a one-sided dialogue or a very stagnant dialogue. I really want to make sure that this is an open dialogue and that we are getting as many perspectives. And again, it's changing, so I want to make sure our information is changing with it.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. What would you say our audience can expect from us for this podcast?
That's a good question. I think the audience can expect honesty and transparency. And I think that, we like, there will be times that Fran and I don't agree, and we will leave it on the table and put it out there and see what things come from. There will be times that we do agree, but y'all might not agree. I think at the end of the day, our goal is to be as transparent as possible with the information that we have and make sure that the dialogue we have is not biased in any way, and is really, fact oriented. And I think that's the real thing that I want, that I would hope that we achieve. And you can also expect us to, I was going to say be goofy, because I feel like that's coming. And we haven't shown it
just a
yet,
part of my DNA.
Yeah, it's
can't
going to
help
be,
it.
you can expect bloopers and, stuff, but no, that, and then, no, I think that's what I'm going to say for right now. What about you? What do you want people to expect from us?
I really like that. I think transparency is really important. I will fully acknowledge, while of course, I always want to do my best to share my thoughts and opinions and experiences from the most factually based place ever. I'm also well aware, we all have unconscious biases, whether you acknowledge that or believe that or not. And what I share in my opinions are obviously through my lens, which is shaped by my experiences in my life. So obviously keep that in mind. Sometimes what I share, my perspective or what I think is not going to be true for everyone or land with everyone. And that's totally okay. Just like you said, we're going to have different perspectives. You and I alone are not always going to agree on the topic of discussion or the best way to go about things. But I think that's the beauty of it. We have the tech industry is such a diverse population of people who make up the industry. And the goal really is that we are speaking to everyone involved and touching on such a diverse range of topics, and also having that diversity of thought and experience also in the guests that we have and bring onto this podcast. So that's kind of just a caveat to your points that I wanted to share, while also completely agreeing that the goal really is to be transparent, discuss the hard topics, not just the shiny cookie cutter ones. We want to get deep and, like I said, lift the veil, having discussions around compensations, Lord, compensation. If I had more than one, that'd be great. Compensation, or why companies are pushing return to office, or the diversity outlook of leadership across Fortune 100 companies. We want to have difficult conversations in line with our level of transparency. So that's what I would add in as well, in addition to bringing fun and humor to our conversations as well.
We shouldn't tell them to expect fun and humor, because what if we're really dry and we're not fun and humorous?
What if no one thinks I'm funny? It's okay. I laugh at myself. It's all that matters.
This is facts. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, because I think aside from that, there are other things that we definitely want people to expect from us, but I think those are things that will come out naturally as we create episodes.
Yeah.
So, because I was gonna say more stuff, but it's I don't want to put out everything that I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I could give a long ass list.
Yeah.
But I have too many things for you all to hold us to.
Yeah.
Keep your standards low.
Yeah, right. I don't know if we should say that out loud.
I'm kidding. What would you I don't think we touched on this yet. What led you to wanting to create a podcast? I think we touched on it a little bit, but for you personally, what led you to wanting to create a podcast and start this conversation with a larger audience?
So I was there's a few different things that happened at once. I would say first I was looking for, so I enjoy podcasts. So let's start with that, right? So I like it. I like podcasts, and they're always about so many different things.
Top two.
Huh?
Top
Top
two
two.
that you listen to.
I would say, oh, okay, that's funny. So I would say Tim Ferriss show. The Tim Ferriss show. I've been listening to probably since like 2015 or 16. And I'll say for me also is Joe Rogan. Those are probably my top two. Just because that's just what I've been listening to the longest. I'd say Tim Ferriss probably a lot more. But yeah, that's probably my top two. But when I went, a lot of my peers have podcasts that they listen to about their jobs, right? And so the thing is, when you are good at your job, new things in your industry is just fun to listen to, right? And so even when like there are other quote unquote tech specific podcasts, but it's more like technical. And I'll give a shout out to one of my friends. There's a podcast called What the FinTech. And it's a very interesting fintech
Clever
oriented
title.
podcast. Yeah. So it's actually really cool. So for me, it was when I went out to the market and looked up stuff about the tech market, right? Not about technology itself, but about the market. I couldn't find anything personally. Now, if it's already out there, I'm sorry. There are a few that were out that are no longer like running, but I didn't see anything running. And I was like, well, there's a lot of stuff happening. And I have all of my friends always ask me questions about different things, whether it's their resume or what they should do in an interview or how they should negotiate a salary. And I was like, and this is kind of me being lazy, but I was like, I'd love to just send them an episode and call it a day.
Per my last episode.
Yeah, right. But on top of that, it's just, this is something I'm very passionate about. And I think at that point, after I had that revelation that we didn't have an episode or a podcast like that, I think you and I were just having a conversation, and we both were like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. And we went from there. But you tell me what led you to that point of wanting to have a podcast.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I think our stories are fairly similar. I have thought about it kind of on and off over the years. I've had like a few different like creative offshoots in terms of media and outlets. Like I remember during the pandemic, I started I basically started like an Instagram blog for local mom and pop restaurants where I lived in the LA area to because so many restaurants were impacted by, I don't know if I talked with you about, so many restaurants were obviously impacted negatively by the pandemic and having to shut down. So I wanted to try and build more buzz and notoriety and drive business to small, like locally owned restaurants. So I started a blog during the pandemic. I don't do anymore because it was like way too much.
But is it still like, does it still exist?
I still have the account. Yeah.
Let's put it in the show notes. Let people check out.
No. I'll think about it. But just like kind of creative outlets like that, where I was trying to see where I could impact at scale. And I've thought about off and on like doing a podcast over the years. Like I have friends who've done podcasts. My friend Tyler had a podcast, which is really cool. So it's been something I've kind of ruminated on over the years, and I always talked myself out of it. So I was like, no one wants to hear me talk, or got like self-conscious or imposter syndrome. And like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing starting a podcast, but we're figuring it out as we go. It's been a really, really awesome learning experience. And at the end of the day, mine was really, how can I lift the veil and create a larger, more purposeful impact at scale? Because right now, like I know you and I both volunteer and mentor, and that's a lot more like one-to-one, like smaller groups. And then also with our jobs being in the recruiting field, a lot of our impact is on like a one-to-one, or sometimes at like career fairs and speaking engagements, like at a little bit larger scale. But I really wanted to be able to share our knowledge and provide access at a larger scale.
I love it. And I also, another thing that I'm thinking of, just based on what's happening in the market today, I also like think I would love for this podcast to let people know that they're not alone. Just because there's so many different situations that are happening right now in the tech industry. Actually, specifically in tech recruiting, like there are recruiters getting impacted. And so
Yeah.
regardless of what's going on, I would love for this podcast to, no matter what you're going through in the tech world, just let people know they're not alone. That's another thing that I was thinking of. But one thing that I didn't get to ask you that you asked me, top 2 podcasts, go. And we're going to put all this in the show notes.
Not gonna lie, I really only listened to one, and it's Jay Shetty. Shout out to the man. His stuff is super inspirational, and it's all about purpose and driven purpose. He's kind of like my virtual therapist, and he doesn't even know it, but I love Jay Shetty.
Oh yeah, he was doing these guided meditations during COVID. I don't know if he's still doing them, but I remember I jumped on it a few times because just getting away from. No, he's awesome. I love it.
Thank you all so much for joining today's episode. We hope this was helpful in learning a little bit more about your hosts, Fran and Shubho, our podcast, Dear Tech, and what you can expect from us moving forward.
Thank you so much. Sincerely, Fran and Shubho.